that. It's controversial. A lot of people don't get it. A lot of people don't like it when I say this, but there is such a thing as poverty pimping. And another thing, when you talk about African countries and the way charity is done, charity actually doesn't make the countries wealthier. It keeps them above complete destitution. But what it actually does is the way charity is done. Charity actually doesn't make the countries wealthier. It keeps them above. There we go. I'm not echoing anymore. All right. So the other thing about that whole poverty pimp concept is that the way the charity is done with African countries, for example, is that the individuals who form these foundations, if you're not careful in terms of watching how the money's used and what they're doing with the money, uh, these individuals actually make themselves very wealthy and they make their friends very wealthy. So let me give you an example. Let's say that, I'm a hippie that wants to, help children in Ethiopia have new shoes, right? So here's the deal, right? There's the short-term solution and then there's a long-term solution. The short-term solution would be one where I just get shoes to the kids. They're the best shoes available. They don't pay anything for them, and that's it. The better long-term solution would be, sure, I'll give you some shoes now, but I actually help Ethiopia develop the infrastructure to cost effectively create shoes to stimulate the economy so they can then also give the children jobs or their parents jobs making the shoes, right? Build a shoe factory that's going to manufacture and process shoes right there in Ethiopia so that the kids can have shoes and their parents can go work at the shoe factory, right? That's the long-term solution. Most charities don't go for the long-term solution. What they do is they go for the short-term solution. And here's how the short-term solution works. The Chinese do this a lot in Africa too. That's why Africa is not going to win with all these relationships with the Chinese. They'll go and call their friend, right? I'm running the charity to make shoes. I'll call my friend who's a shoemaker in France, and I'll say to my friend, I'll say, I've raised $50 million to give shoes to kids in Ethiopia. I'm going to pay you 25 million of that 50 million to make some shoes for these kids. And you can charge me whatever price you want. You can charge me $200 a pair or whatever. And so you're going to get this big pocket of money. Then we're going to make a bunch of shoes. We're going to dump them on the kids in Ethiopia. And of course, we're going to film it, right? We're going to film the kids that are struggling, that with bleeding feet, that don't have any shoes, that poverty porn, that's what they call it. And we're also going to film how happy and jubilant the children are when they finally get their first pair of shoes, right? And we're going to use that for marketing material, where we'll take that marketing material and then we'll go out into the world to other, rich white people and market this beautiful imagery of the great things that we're doing for the children in Ethiopia. So the problem with that is that once that's being done, if it's sort of being done that way, then that means that when you have people in Ethiopia who are not charity driven, who are thinking about the long-term economic strength of Ethiopia as a country, the businessmen in Ethiopia, for example, or the parents of that kid who got the free shoes, they may be thinking like, well, we don't actually want to, get charity for the rest of our lives. We don't want you dumping free shoes onto our community. We're not a charity case, and it doesn't help us long term. So let's say that they say, you know what, we're going to go make our own shoes. We're going to make our own shoes in Ethiopia. We're going to build our own factory. We're going to get this done. Well, the problem then is that, number one, that capital that was spent providing the free shoes, that money could have been spent investing to build the shoe factory. That's one thing that's missed out in terms of opportunity cost. But then two, you have the problem of that where the people in their own community are working against them. Like, you're going to have people that are going to say, hey, what do you mean you're charging me $10 for these shoes when I can get free shoes from the white man? Like, the white man comes by with the airplane and dumps, 10,000 pairs of shoes on the community, and we get them for free. Why would I buy your shoes? And it can get even toxic, where it's like you're scamming the community because you're charging $10 for shoes when the white guy was giving us free shoes, right? And so effectively, you have a little bit of that in your own community, right? We're accustomed to receiving certain things for free that actually are dangerous for the community. Like, for example, education. In the Black Business School, we don't charge that much for most of our programs. Like, compared to colleges, a lot of y'all spent $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 or more going to college. We have a lot of programs that are like, $5 a day, $3 a day, $10 a day. Like it's not much, right? But then we'll have people that, because they're used to, say free public education, or because they're used to only paying white people for education because they believe they're superior, or because they're used to being part of these programs that give you free things, right? Because they believe black people can't afford to buy anything that they actually need. We can only afford to buy things that we want. We can only afford things like Popeye's chicken, Air Jordans, and movie tickets. But when it comes to like after school programs for our kids or books that our children might need, there are people always there to kind of give it to us because they sort of see us as a charity case and we see ourselves as a charity case. So then what will happen is someone will come to the black man or whatever who has a book that costs $20 or whatever, and they'll say, you're a scammer. You're scamming the community because you're charging money. You're charging a price. And the interesting thing is that nobody says that to white businesses. White businesses don't get accused of scamming when they charge a price. People expect to pay a price. They know that things aren't free. And so effectively, my point is to say that, if you aren't careful, you can actually, your allies can actually keep you disabled more than your enemies can. And so in the United States, I believe that the people that sort of benefit from our hopelessness, benefit from our misery, benefit from our struggle the most are actually our allies, the people that claim to be the ones who are going to solve the problem, who never actually end up solving the problem. So for example, if I were to ask you, how much has the black community economically improved in cities where the Democratic Party is actually running things? Most of you could not give me an adequate answer to that question. In fact, a lot of people will get mad at me for even asking the question, because a lot of people don't want to really sort of think about it. They just sort of want to be mad, or they want to believe what they believe, but you have to have proof and facts and evidence to support that idea. So what I'm actually encouraging you guys to consider is that ultimately economic freedom and liberation, which is a very difficult concept, which is tough to obtain and tough to maintain, it requires some heavy lifting. It requires sacrifice. It requires sacrifice. When I was 18 years old and I got tired of my mother telling me what to do, I remember, going through the difficult process of hearing my mother say, she would basically say, well, if you want to do what you want to do, then you got to pay your own bills, right? And that was tough, right? Because she was paying all the bills and I lived at her house. But I went through that difficult process of getting enough money to live on my own and to pay my own bills without asking my parents for any money. And that gave me the freedom to then say, okay, now I'm kind of a man. Now I can do what I want. And now no one can tell me what to do. But if I had sort of, shown up begging, from my parents every week and still demanded that I have complete freedom as if I were an independent adult, well, that's not realistic thinking. So for black folks, I think that you have to kind of sort of understand that freedom, not only is freedom not free, but freedom is very, very hard, and freedom is extremely costly. It's sometimes it may cost you everything. It may cost you your peace of mind. So a lot of people have given their lives for freedom, and I don't really know if all of us are ready for that sacrifice on the whole. Why? Well, because one other thing freedom requires, economic freedom and otherwise, is it requires a type of, shall we say, self-discipline, if you will, meaning this sort of ability to delay gratification. You sacrifice today so you can win later on. And that's not real popular. Delayed gratification is just not a popular concept in our society. Instant gratification is what people seek. That's why you'll see, for example, when I see a guy who's got, 8 kids with 5 women, and he can't afford to take care of them, I see a person that's addicted to instant gratification, the instant gratification that comes with sleeping with a pretty girl, right? Or when I see somebody who seems to be their own worst enemy, because they haven't made any investments to prepare themselves for the future, so their life is kind of difficult. I also see a person that is addicted to instant gratification, or a person who would rather sit down and watch Empire or Power every night, but doesn't have the discipline to sit down and study every night. I see a person who has a brain malfunction to an extent of instant gratification versus delayed gratification. And so when I see that, I see a direct link to the poverty traps. Not the things that got you into poverty, but the things that will keep you in poverty, because you sort of don't understand that typically the present is typically controlled by people who planned for it in the past. Those who prepare tend to win. So when I talk to the kids in the house, and let's say a lot of you have kids who do this. Our 16-year-old, we'll tell him, hey, make sure you're ready by 9 o'clock. We're leaving at 9 o'clock. 8:30 gets there, 8:45, 8:55, 9 o'clock hits. He still hasn't even packed his clothes. And so when I see that, I just gently say to him, I say, the inability to prepare for the future is going to cost you for the rest of your life. Or I'll say people that want to get ahead in life are people that prepare in advance, right? And I'll just repeatedly say that so that one day when it kicks in, one day something's going to happen where that procrastination in the inability to sort of prepare for the future, which is a type of delayed gratification. It's when you do something now that's going to impact you later. It's going to cost him really big time. And what's going to happen is he's going to hear my voice in the back of his head saying, I told you so. Like, remember, I told you this is how things work. And then at that point, hopefully the behavior will modify itself. But ultimately, when I see the entire Black community, that's what I kind of see. I see a community that's trained to react to things, but not trained to be proactive, right? Not trained to sort of say, okay, these are all the things that could happen. Let's go ahead and prepare. You see a lot of people that will instead say, these are the things that did happen. Let's now react, or this really makes me mad, or I can't believe they did this to us, right? Or you think about even something as basic as life insurance. Look at how many of our people die without life insurance. Life insurance is basically um, you can interpret it as additional evidence of the inability to do things that are connected to delayed gratification. It's not quite, it's not like death is gratification, but there is the gratification of having financial security upon your passing, right? Well, how many of you have family members that refuse to even talk about death? They won't talk about life insurance. They won't talk about any sort of planning for death. They think that I talk about death a lot, and people think, I even had somebody that said, why are you always killing people off? Why are you always trying to kill yourself off? Why are you always talking about death? And I said, well, because death is going to happen. Death, I'm going to die. I want to be prepared for my death so that everything I've worked hard for is orderly and in a position where my lawyers can basically pass the paperwork to the right people and keep the party going, keep the empire moving, keep everything functional. A lot of folks, if they die tomorrow, like an honest question you can ask yourself is, if I died tomorrow, what would happen? Like literally, when you could not work at all, you can't do anything. Who is gonna pick up the torch? Who's gonna really carry the load? Who's gonna take care of this person over here and this person over there? All these things that I promise people that I get done. These people that depend on me. I have maybe I'm living. I have a partner I live with, and they depend on me to pay the bills. But if I die, can they even get into my bank account to get access to the money? And so ultimately, that inability to do that, it's a type of what I call economic immaturity. Economic immaturity is where you're still almost thinking like a child in a very childlike sort of way, as opposed to thinking the way adults are supposed to think, which is, if you think about, for example, think about the way a child reacts. If you give a child $20 and you say, what are you going to do with this money? Well, the child's going to be like, okay, I'm going to buy some candy, then I'm going to buy some shoes, then I'm going to buy some jewelry, right? An adult, if you give them money, they're gonna be thinking about other things. They're gonna think about, okay, I gotta pay the light bill, I gotta pay the car note, I gotta, right? But kids don't do that. You don't give kids money and have them say, well, I want to contribute to the light bill and the car note, right? Because they're not thinking that way, right? So another level of maturity, even beyond that, is to also say, okay, I want to put some of my money toward things that are going to either put me in a better position so I can get out of the position I'm in, or protect me from things that might happen in the future. Right. So ultimately, I would almost say that poverty, the biggest myth, and this is, I went full circle in this analogy because I really wanted to kind of flesh it out for you guys to kind of, so you can, it's a little bit of a stream of consciousness. So I apologize if it sounds long-winded, but I hope that the subtleties of this discussion can benefit you, because what I'm really doing is I'm doing a deep dive analysis on where our community is and some of the issues that we face and why many of these issues are very, very predictable, particularly when it comes to economics. A lot of that poverty, what they call the poverty mindset, when you dissect it, you can connect it directly to a lot of what we're programmed on and trained on at an early age. And a lot of it actually starts with your allies. A lot of times your best buddies, let's say leaders in the Democratic Party or whatever, or society at large, they're the ones who are actually keeping you in the position that you're in. And so these false beliefs, one major false belief is that if you're born poor, you have to die poor. That might be true in a third world country that has no opportunity. That is not true in America. I don't care what anybody says. There are thousands of people, 80%, I think 70, 80% of all millionaires are actually self-made millionaires. So there is a direct connection between what you do and what your outcomes are. So for example, it would be silly for me to tell you that no matter how much exercise you do, you can't lose weight. If you're fat, you have to be fat. Like that is a defeatist mindset. But if you think about that, there are people that almost talk that way. We had a hard conversation last month where I actually mentioned something about Lizzo's popularity. Her economic and social popularity was driven by the obesity epidemic and allowing people to sort of feel like it's a good thing to be obese. Now, I'm not saying that you should shame someone who's overweight. I'm not into that. I mean, because I'm still technically overweight. I have relatives that are overweight. I don't think that's not only is that a waste of time, but I just think it's unfair. It's not right to dog somebody because they're big. But I do think that there's such a thing as tough love that really gets thrown out the window. It's something that Black folks, I think, understood before integration. I think that before integration, you had grandparents that believed in tough love and they gave you tough love growing up. And many of y'all are old enough to remember getting that tough love. Some of you still are blessed enough to have somebody that gives you that tough love. Now we live in a society where we feel that love must always feel good in the moment, that everything that comes out of your mouth toward your child or your friend or somebody you want to help, everything must sound pleasant and rosy and wonderful when it comes out. And if it doesn't, that means you're being mean because you hurt their feelings. Well, I've had people that hurt my feelings in the moment, but when I sat back and thought about it, they were actually saying these things because they love me. Like, I'll tell you one thing about how I deal with people when I invest in people. I don't talk to a lot of people. A lot of people, I just don't. If I think you're an idiot and you won't listen, I'm not even going to waste my time telling you about something that I see in terms of a glaring problem in terms of what you're doing. If I take that time to say something that pisses you off in the moment, that is not pleasant for me. I do not gain from that. I'm 48 years old. I'm already a successful person. I gain nothing from pissing off a relative by telling them what they don't want to hear, right? But the reason I might do that is because I love you enough to know that if I say this to you, you're gonna hate me for this, but you're gonna benefit because you know that I'm not a stupid person, and you know that what I'm saying, as mad as you might be, there's a little bit of truth to it, right? Or there's got to be some type of truth to it, right? So I know that even if you scream and holler and yell and cuss me out, you're gonna walk away and you're gonna not be able to sleep that night because what I said is gonna be in the back of your head. Because even people that get mad at you or don't like you or whatever, they know the difference between a smart person and a stupid person, right? Or a sincere person and insincere. A lot of times you can pick that up. So if I'm a sincere person who's pretty smart and I say something and it pisses you off, after you get pissed off, it's going to resonate and it's going to change your behavior on some level. You might even change your behavior just so you can prove me, or just so you can shut me up, or so you can not necessarily prove me wrong. Maybe you could prove me wrong. I don't know. Like if I say, hey, if you keep on doing that, then this is going to happen, right? Maybe you're going to change your behavior so you can come back and say, ha ha, I told you it wasn't going to happen, right? So ultimately what I would just say overall is that when you make that link, when you talk about what it means to be an investor, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that an investor's mentality is all about money. That is so untrue. And one thing I can say is two things. One, if you have the mentality of an investor, basically you're simply a person who has the mentality of an individual who can delay gratification. That's all an investor is somebody who knows how to delay gratification. And people who have an investor mentality win. They usually win. People that plant seeds for today, they have more food tomorrow. People that invest today have more money tomorrow. People that exercise today look good, 3-4 months from now, right? There's all people who take care of their kids now and raise them right now have amazing children when they're in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. My a lot of the benefits my mother gets now. My mother is she was when she gave birth to me, she was 17 years old. She was a single mom at the time, and because my dad wasn't around for whatever reason, I don't know what happened. That was between them. But I got a stepfather. We did live in the projects, and the interesting thing is that I had a lot of friends that were the same age as me because you know how young girls sometimes will have a lot of kids and a lot of kids at the same time, and they just kind of play together like play cousins. Well, I had a lot of play cousins. We would go to their house on the weekend, stuff like that. And there was a distinct difference between the way my mother and my father, he's my stepfather, but he's really my father. The way there was a difference between how they disciplined us and how other people disciplined their kids. There was a difference in the expectations they had for us versus expectations my friends' parents had for them. And I didn't understand it at the time. But what happened was years later, I saw what happened with a lot of my friends, and it wasn't good. They would just end up in these interesting situations. And my mother, and my father are able to say, oh yeah, my son, he's a PhD. My daughter is a medical doctor, and my other son went to an Ivy League school. And what's fascinating is that when I look back on that, there were no other kids in my space who had those sorts of outcomes. Like none of my parents' friends. Because remember, my mother was 17 years old, living in the projects, and her girlfriends. I mean, you just aren't going to really see a lot of that coming out of quote unquote the hood, right? But there was a distinct difference between the things they did with us, say in the 1980s and the 1990s, versus what a lot of their friends were doing with their children. So a lot of you in here are doing different things with your kids. You have children that are studying business and economics at an early age, at the age of 7 or 8 years old. Well, your children will, like I'm here to just tell you that your children will be extraordinary in the eyes of other people by the time they're 20, 25. People are going to look at them at 20, 25 years old and say, oh my God, he has his own business. He owns property. He has, $80,000 in his stock portfolio. How can a young black man have all that, right? It's because he was trained different. When I was standing on the street yesterday, I came outside of the Weekend Wealth Summit, and I was standing on the street. We were waiting on an Uber, and I was about to go back in and get Alicia. Alicia likes to go to these little stores. They have all these spiritual trinkets and stuff. It's really interesting to watch her in these stores. It's so funny. And so anyway, Louisiana is a very spiritual place. And so anyway, I'm standing outside, and a brother walks up, and he gives me a look. Like I know the look. If I ever see you guys in public, I can identify your look. Like most people may not say anything, but they'll give me a look, and I'll be like, okay, that person, they know who I am. Maybe they'll say something, maybe they won't, but you can tell. So he gave me the look, and he walks up, and he's like, Dr. Watkins, man, so great to see you. And I was like, oh, hey, what's going on, man? Like I really feel like I'm meeting a family member. Like it doesn't matter if I don't know you. I feel like you're a relative because we know each other. And so anyway, so first thing I like to do is find out what people are doing, because I don't really care if you know who I am so much. I want to know why you want to meet me. Like, what is it about me that led you to even pay attention to what I have to say? Because that puts you in the minority right there. Most black people aren't really trying to have deep intellectual conversations like this on a Sunday morning. They're just not. And so the fact that you even know who I am, to me, that it makes me impressed with you. That says, okay, you're different. Like you're really on a different path. So tell me about your path. So check this out. So this brother tells me, he says, oh, by the way, yeah, I have this. He said, the such and such down the street. I forgot what it was called. And I said, no, I don't know. He said, everybody in New Orleans apparently knows this place. He said, yeah, I just bought that building, and I bought the building next to it. And it was a multi-million-dollar purchase. And he said, in New Orleans, people think I'm an old white man because they don't believe that a young black man can actually own all these buildings. And he owns buildings in Atlanta. And so instantly I knew that there was something in his life that made him different. There was something in his life where somebody mentored him, somebody taught him the game, somebody put him on a different trajectory that led to him becoming, basically, in my mind, what is an economic superstar. I wish I knew the name of the business. He texted me. I actually had him text me because we're going to go over to his place tonight because he's having one of those one of those bands that play. They got the bands in New Orleans. He's having one of those bands, the horns. They play the horns. They're called the Bassaholics, I think. They're going to perform tonight. So Alicia and I are going to go stop by. But anyway, the point of the matter is to say that I can tell now from everything that we've been doing that there's just a difference, man. There is a difference. And so what I encourage you to do is put that difference in your kids, put that difference in your life, because that's going to pay off. It's going to pay huge dividends. The key idea, though, is that you have to do it in advance. The earlier you do it, the more impact it's going to have. But if you want a different outcome, you got to do something different. If you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to get what everybody else is getting. And so anyway, let me go ahead and answer some of your questions in the Q&A section here. I apologize. Sorry for going on that long tangent. I hope that that was worthwhile. If you really process that, though, that was actually the reason I took the time to express that to you guys is because that's probably one of the most impactful things I can actually say to you. If you apply even half of what I just said, you're going to see a difference in your life. It just may take time, but you got to have the courage to jump off the beaten path. You can't just do what everybody else is doing. All right, so let's see here. Darren says you own the land and the tenant owns the home, rents the spot. Okay, got it. So you're talking about mobile homes, right? So you own the land, okay, and the tenant owns the home, rents the spot. Okay, that part I don't get. The tenant owns the home, rents the spot. So I think you're saying that if you get a mobile home, you buy the land that the mobile home is on, and then I guess you can rent the spot to somebody else because if it's your land, nobody's renting it to you. So, but I think I get what you're saying, but I kind of do. Let's see here. How about squiring duplex properties, says Harold. I don't know what that question means. I apologize. Julian talks about that in the Weekend Wealth Summit. That was he did a lot of that on day one. He's going to cover a lot of that on day two. So if you're in the Black Business School live stream for the Weekend Wealth Summit later on today, I'm going to do another presentation on the stock market, and Julian's going to do another presentation on real estate, and so that'll be later on in the afternoon. Right now, we're doing the Q&A because they're doing the tours of his properties. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the recordings of those tours and put that in with your course content, with your recording. If you log into the Black Lecture Series, you can find it all there. Let's see here. Ronnie says, hey, Doc, do you think that a Black Power app, a mobile app that would list all Black-owned businesses and contractors, entrepreneurs, would be a good idea? Well, there are apps out there like that. I don't have any of the names of them in front of me, but people have already started creating apps like that. What I find with creating apps is that there's a lot of legwork and a lot of technical know-how necessary. And even then, whether it's going to succeed is hard to predict. I know that whatever you start business-wise, I would encourage you to make sure that that you have a budget to market whatever you're selling. If you don't have a budget to market, then it's not going to get off the ground most of the time. I've seen people that I met one guy one time who was asking me. See, I get a lot of interesting business proposals that honestly don't make any sense because I think that we just kind of have to learn what it means to pitch. But one guy proposed to me that I helped him market a new app that he had, and here was the interesting thing. So I knew why usually people pitch things to us because we got three things I think that people need. We got a lot of expertise, we have some money, and we also have a very, very large platform. And I understand that, like that's totally fine, but the problem is that if you pitch something, you have to make sure you explain clearly how both parties benefit. So you could do it in a few different ways, right? If you have money, you can say, hey, we'll give you $10,000 to market this for us, right? And that makes sense because any white corporation that is trying to market a product understands that marketing costs money. You can't get all your marketing for free. Or maybe I'll give you one shout out or something, but I can't. We have people to pay. Every business does. So you have to have something where basically you're explaining what's in it for the other party, other than just the fact that they get the satisfaction of knowing that they did all the work for you, right? Two, I think you have to be able to show some sort of track record that you're really in this business, that this isn't just an idea, that you've actually put it together, you've been running it, you've been doing what you can with what you got. I'll give you an example. Vicky Dillard, who does a podcast on Fly New Being Queen. I supported her in terms of pushing her stuff out there, but Vicky had already spent a year and a half doing a podcast on her Facebook page where she had, it didn't matter if she had one viewer or a million. Vicky was in there doing her thing every day, consistently on a daily basis, sharpening her skill set, like practicing every day. Even if she had two people watching, she would talk to those two people as if it was 2 million. And so that showed me that she was serious, that she was really in it. Because one thing you don't want to do, entering a business with somebody is like entering a relationship with them. You don't want to try to go marry somebody who can't keep a relationship going for more than 2 weeks. That's going to be very frustrating for you because, like New Edition used to say, can you stand the rain? Well, you don't want to go through, have to go through the rain with somebody who's only known the sunshine, who's never actually been through anything and doesn't know what it means to actually stick to something yet. And so ultimately, one of the things actually that I had thought about putting together, and I'm almost done actually piecing this together. I've been thinking about it for 2 years, is an investment club. And I didn't, the problem with an investment club, the thing I wanted to avoid was I didn't want to get into the business of managing a lot of people's money. That just comes with a lot of complications. When you're doing business in the Black community, it's a little bit different because you have a lot of mistrust. If anything goes wrong, suddenly everybody's saying, oh, you're a scammer, you're a fraud, you're stealing from Black people, right? We don't say these things to all the white businesses that really are stealing from us, but are very quick to say that about Black people. Like Jay Morrison created the Tulsa Fund. A bunch of people climbed out of the woodwork to say a lot of really disparaging things without any evidence or facts to back up what they were saying. And it doesn't mean Jay is perfect. I don't know if he's perfect or not, but it does. But the reason I never really spoke about it in a negative way is because I said, I've invested in probably 300 different companies. So why would I pick his company out and scrutinize his company more than I scrutinize the other 299, right? Because if you tell me, do I think that Popeye's Chicken is robbing Black people? Yeah, and Jay Morrison raised 10 million or 12 million or whatever. Popeye's Chicken, might grab 50 million a week out of the Black community and sell you refried diabetes and leave you with a stroke and a heart attack to go with it. So I think that the way we scrutinize Black businesses is a little bit problematic. So anyway, back to that key point about forming partnerships. I think partnerships. So with the investment club, one of the things I wanted to do is actually, as part of the process, make people get or encourage people to get certified on what it means to actually pitch your business, how to pitch it, how to make sure you incorporate the win-win, how to be concise with people's time. If you're talking to somebody that's really busy, a millionaire is not a regular person in a lot of ways. Millionaires don't think like regular people. Millionaires usually aren't sitting around watching Empire and Power all day. They're not sitting around gossiping all day. They're not wasting time on nonsense all day. They're getting things done, right? So if you get a chance to talk to a millionaire or a billionaire, you better be quick. If you get a chance to pitch your stuff, you better be pitching in 2 minutes. If you tell them, oh, I got 18,000 PowerPoints and I need to have a meeting with you so I can sit down and explain it all to you, the answer is usually going to be no. And it's not because they're trying to be mean. It's just because they don't have the time. I get a lot of people that say, hey, Doc, can I just talk to you on the phone for a few minutes? No, I'm sorry, I can't because I just don't have the time. I have things that we have to do. And if I don't get things done, then I can't feed the people that I'm supposed to feed. We can't achieve the things that we have to do, right? So I don't have time to sit and talk about something that might work out one day. I can only talk about things that are real, right? So ultimately, I encourage you to sort of figure out, what can you do in terms of a win-win. I noticed one guy I talked to, I'll give you one good example. This guy came to me with an app that he wanted me to help him promote. And I was like, okay, sure, but tell me about it. And he told me that he was a really good programmer and he'd won a pitch competition or something. It had, $250,000 that they gave him. And I was like, wow, that's really great. And they spent almost all the money, paying engineers and everything else so they could design the app. And I said, okay, well, we can help you promote. Like I can promote consistently and it'll be easy to do. I said, so what is your marketing budget? And he said, well, I was hoping that you would do this, for free. And I was like, no. Did you ask all the other people that you paid? Did you ask them to do it for free? And I said, and I helped him. I did mention it. It wasn't like I just totally said screw off or F you or whatever. I'm not that kind of person. But I still was sort of like, why would you create an amazing product and have no budget for marketing? Like, why would you take the whole $250,000 and blow it on product development and save nothing for actually telling people about your extraordinary product? That's not good business. So I just tell you right now, if you develop something and you want people to see it, I would encourage you to put whatever your budget is. I would say half of it should be marketing. Half of it should be developing the product. The other half should be whatever it costs to tell people about the product. So because if you reach out, whether you reach out to a social media influencer like myself, and there are bigger ones out there, you know, they're gonna probably want you to pay them to use their platform that they spent 10,000 hours and $1 million building up, or whatever it is that they put into to building it. They can't just give everything away for free. So that's one thing I would tell you. So if you develop this app, going back to Ronnie's question, if you develop this app, make sure that you know that it's quality, that it works. But then once you know that it's working, uh, you know, dump a bunch of money into marketing. That's going to open a lot of doors for you. That's the easiest way to get a conversation, is to say, in fact, that's what we do. When we want somebody to promote something for us, sure, I can get people to do me favors. You know, I could call up with Jay Morrison and say, hey, Jay, would you mention this on your platform? Or Tariq Nasheed, hey, Tariq, can you share this real quick? And they might share it once or twice. But when I really want to do business with Tariq or anybody else, I show up with money. I show up with something that says, here, I respect your time. I respect the power of your platform. Let me give you something so that you win as well as me. So keep that in mind. It's very, very important to understand that. I learned that when I was working on my PhD. When I was working on my PhD, I used to think that professors were going to help you, you know, get your dissertation done just because it was the right thing to do. And I didn't know that actually, no, they aren't going to do that. They're only going to help you if you could show them what's in it for them. And it's not because they're being greedy bastards. It was because everybody's out here trying to survive. Like, would you, if an employer says, we value your skills, we really think you're great. Now, will you come in and work, you know, 40 hours a week for free? Most of you will probably say no, right? So the same thing is true when you're looking for business partners. No, very few people can work for you or work with you on a sustained basis in a meaningful, relevant way, long term, for nothing. It just doesn't, it just can't work that way. So anyway, let me see here. Mario Cole says, I followed you for years and I love what you stand for. Thank you very much. So much that I was able to save over $20,000 by changing my mindset. Ooh, 29 years old, and I don't have a lot of mentors or positive examples around me. Well, you are a positive example. I mean, you're becoming the mentor for other people, Mario. That's very impressive. Y'all hear that? 29 years old, you saved $20,000. If you were me, what investments would you make with what I have saved? I'm looking to be financially free. That's all I think about. Man, that's inspirational, Mario. You made my day, brother. Um, Here's what I would say. The areas where I've seen, if I was a young black man, and Dr. Claude Anderson keeps telling me I'm a young black man, but that's because he's not. He's an old black man, but he's a bad black man. He's a bad boy. But anyway, if I were a younger black man and I want to be financially free, and I had the inspiration and the discipline that Mario apparently has, because he was able to save $20,000, which right there, that separates you from the pack. Like, that puts you in the 1% for the most part, in terms of where you positioned yourself, and the fact that you actually you took a step beyond that. A lot of people have a dream. A lot of people will say, oh, I want this to happen, but very few people actually have that discipline to execute the dream. So you're in the 1% already, Mario, at 29 years old. Like, you're going to be very wealthy by the time you're 39, 45 years old. I already know it. But given that you have all that discipline, and it comes from a passion that you have and an obsession that you have with your success, which I believe is, or at least that was my formula. Like, when I want something in my life, like, I fantasize about it. Like, I dream about it. You know, I obsess over it. I repeat it to myself to manifest that. What I would do is I would actually obsess myself with learning entrepreneurship. The easiest, fastest way I've seen people make a lot of money very quickly is by learning the culture and the skill set that comes with being just a damn good entrepreneur. Like, if you become a really good entrepreneur, it's like being a great basketball player. Like, you can't be a good basketball player just by reading a book or just by going to the court a couple of times. The really great basketball players are the guys who are always on the court, rain, sleet, snow, or hail, nighttime, daytime, trying to play basketball in the dark. Anybody ever grow up where you would be on the basketball court, like, trying to play basketball, and it's dark and it's like 10 degrees outside, and the court literally has ice on it, and you're literally in the dark on a court with ice on it, trying to shoot baskets because you just love basketball that much? Like, that was literally kind of how I was, you know, as a kid. I just loved sports that much. And so in a way, I think becoming free, I think your freedom should be something that you eat for breakfast every morning. Like, you just get up every day and you're just thinking about what it's going to take for you to get to the next level, how excited you are to get there. Find other people you can vibe with who kind of get it. Carry your dream with you on your sleeve, where there's nobody who knows you who doesn't know what you all about, what you represent. Like there's nobody that knows me who doesn't know that I'm really black every day of the week and twice on Sundays. There's nobody that knows me who doesn't know that I'm also really big on black economic independence and economic power. Like they know that that's just an obsession for me, something I meditate on. So do that with entrepreneurship, Mario. Like because what'll happen is if you become a really good entrepreneur, you'll learn how to create revenue with very little capital investment. Like, and I compare it to basketball because a really good basketball player, because he spent 20,000 hours on the basketball court, he just knows how to create a basket. I don't know if you ever watched basketball, but there's a guy named James Harden who is like the most prolific scorer, arguably the most prolific scorer in NBA history. And if you watch James Harden play, you could tell he's not playing on a conscious level. He's unconscious with it. Like he just knows how he'll just flip the ball up in all these weird ways with these crazy unconventional shots because basketball is such a part of his DNA and scoring is such a part of his DNA that his mind just automatically knows where to put the ball, right? To get it in the basket. And so a really good entrepreneur, somebody who's reading books on it, reading articles about it, thinking about it, talking to people about it, joining entrepreneurship groups, and just really obsessing over it, they're not only gonna gain these, very uncanny skills, the type of stuff you can never learn from going to college and just taking a couple classes, but also they're also going to be around other people who do the same thing, right? So because James Harden is such an extraordinary unconscious scorer who just, automatically on autopilot knows where the basket is at all times, he's also in a space now where he's playing in the NBA, where there are other players that are at that same unconscious level. So not only has the quality of his basketball elevated, but the quality of the basketball around him elevates, right? He's part of a better team. So you'll do that as an entrepreneur. You'll elevate your thinking because you've obsessed over it so much, but you're going to also be surrounded by other great economic athletes, if you will, who are also going to be vibing at that same level. And then you're going to do amazing things together. You're going to create these extraordinary businesses that are good, where you'll take that 20 grand and flip it into $500,000, because you knew how to put that money into the right places. So I would actually obsess myself with entrepreneurship and just make that your thing so that you don't have to work for a white man for the rest of your life. I would consider the stock market as well. The stock market has been a great place to make money. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. And now real estate requires, real estate is not just always a no-brainer. Ownership is important, but I think owning lots of real estate and lots of rental properties, I think requires a lot of research and really getting coaching from people that really do this for a living. And if you don't have passion for it, you may not be excited about getting up and going to find a way to fix somebody's toilet at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm not here to say that real estate is just something you should dive into just because there's wealth and there's money there. There is, but you want to learn the terrain enough to know where you want to get in and where you don't want to get in. So for example, we own a rental property, but I paid somebody to go in there and fix it up because I don't want to spend, 100 hours inside an apartment building fixing an apartment building. We have a property management company that we're hiring to run it all because I don't want to do that. I don't want to be knocking on people's doors saying, "Hey, Miss Wilson, where's the rent?" Like that's not, the thing I want to do. But I do want to be an investor and I want to be an owner of that property. But also you can invest in real estate investment groups. I invested in the Tulsa Fund. The Tulsa Fund, real estate that's a real estate thing, right? They buy buildings and property, right? So that building down in Atlanta that Jay Morrison just opened, I'm a part owner in the building. My name is on the wall of the founders and everything else. And that's cool for me, right? I don't really need to be in there getting my hands dirty on the day-to-day of real estate, but some of you may want to do that, right? So you got to figure out where you want to be, right? They say get in where you fit in. You got to figure out where you fit in and don't make it a misfit. Like don't become a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. Even with entrepreneurship, I am not in any level a guy who's going to come tell everybody out here that you need to get up every day and run a business. Some people don't want to do that, but I do believe that you can own a business without actually running it. Also, like, so for example, with Mario, having $20,000, he's in a power position, right? Because everybody needs capital. So if he just had something where, let's say Mario came on my podcast. In fact, Mario, you can feel free to email me, man. My email is email my manager at boycewatkins.com. Maybe I can bring you it, right? So let's say Mario was like, okay, I got $20,000. I'm not going to invest it all, but I might do, $5,000 investments. And we did a shout out and said, does anybody have a business where Mario can own 30% of the business or get 30% of the revenue in exchange for a $5,000 investment? There will be a lot of people with really good ideas who have lots of free time and great opportunities in front of them who could come to you with deals that would be extraordinary. So one of the benefits of the Dr. Boyce Investment Club that we're actually piecing together is that by facilitating an environment where lots of investment clubs could be formed, we're actually creating a bank. It becomes a de facto bank. And with that bank, what you then are able to do is have deal flow. So you can say, hey, we've got 20 investment clubs within our mega group, our mega club, if you will. And each of these clubs has an average of, say, 20 clubs each of them has an average of $50,000 that they pull together in capital. So that's $1 million in capital. Does anybody have a business that could use some funding? And anybody want to make a deal, right? So then what happens is a bunch of people raise their hand. Hundreds of people are like, oh, I got an idea, right? And then they come through and they pitch, right? Or maybe people in the group are pitching to each other. And then after hearing the pitch, the members of the investment clubs are then able to decide if they want to invest in that business or not, right? So that actually helps us circumvent the lack of capital access problem that we get from white banks that don't want to actually loan Black people money. So anyway, that I went down a different path with Mario's question, but long story short is I'm very proud of him, and he should stay on the right path because I will tell you, man, if you keep doing what you're doing, brother, you're gonna be in very good shape. So God bless you, man. I'm super proud of you. What's the email? The email is manager@boycewatkins.com. It's manager@boycewatkins.com. Tell Michelle that I sent you. All right. So attorney Nicole Compton is going to be coming in here very soon, and she'll be here to also answer some questions. And when she arrives, we'll get a chance to talk a little bit. Thank you, Eric. I see you in there, and I appreciate you very, very much. Thanks for your support for the platform. And so let's see the next question here. Let me grab the next one. Oh, okay. All the questions are done. All right. So Nicole should be in here for a second. So what I'm going to do is see what I can if I can find out where she's at. Let's see here. Just so you guys know, those of you who are inside the webinar, if you have a question, put it in the Q&A section so I can see it. And also, what I'm going to do is because this Weekend Wealth Summit went really well, we're going to put the recordings from this summit and then also information on future summits at a URL. We have weekendwealthsummit.com. That's weekendwealthsummit.com. So I'm going to set that up later on today. All right, let me see here. Juanita Neal says, Dr. Boyce, isn't this multifamily about teaching and training people to invest? Yes. Yesterday, we covered a lot of that, as well as in terms of the live stream, the bus tour. You guys can't go on the bus tour because you're coming in via live stream, but he did actually get footage of the bus tour, so you guys can see the properties and stuff like that. And then later on today, there will be more training available as well. And so this Weekend Wealth Summit wasn't just about real estate. It was also, we're actually covering more than that. So I was going to come in and sort of lay out my perspective, but then also attorney Nicole Compton, who understands a lot of the legal issues, the laws of wealth, because she's an attorney and she's also a business startup specialist. She's going to come in and answer a lot of your questions that relate to just sort of the details of starting your business or digging into your real estate ventures, things like that. Later on today, Julian Gordon is going to do a lecture on this live stream in which he's going to actually talk specifically about real estate. So the way the Black Business School is kind of structured is we have several faculty. We have people like Dr. Claude Anderson and others that come through. But the main three faculty are myself, attorney Nicole Compton, and real estate expert Julian Gordon. That allows us to cover the three pillars of wealth really well. The three pillars of wealth are stock investing, entrepreneurship, and real estate. And so you guys know my dissertation was actually on stock market investing. So I'm really into that. I can talk about a lot of the other areas. but stock market investing is really my strongest area. Nicole's strongest area is entrepreneurship and business startups. She's a startup specialist, and she's also a lawyer, so she knows not just the aspects of starting and running a business, but she also understands it from a lawyer's perspective. Lawyers, I find, just know things that other people don't know. Because they know the law, and they know, so she's good with the bureaucracy, like which forms do you fill out, what certification do you have to get, what registration do you have to do to start your business, things like that. And then the real estate component from Julian is based on the fact that real estate's just his thing. That's just what he does. And we have other people in those areas. Like we have other real estate people, we have other entrepreneurship people, we have other stock market people, but those are kind of the big three, so to speak. Okay, so if you guys will give me 1 second, I'm going to pop out and check on Nicole and see where she is. And so just you can stay at the live stream. She's going to come in and do another Q&A. And then later on this afternoon, you'll see us back on stage. We're going to meet over at the venue and do our on stage presentation. So just hang tight. I'll be right back.